I'd like to invite Dr. Kavita Ishwaram. Uh, uh, Dr. Navendra Page, Dr. Jitesh Jhawar, and Devika, no, Dr. Devika Ranade. Sorry. Students, you guys will know who you are.
Hello everyone. Welcome to this panel discussion, very broadly titled Future of Ecology. And I'm really happy that we have some of our alumni here. So, Navendu, many of you know all of them, but let me first introduce myself. I'm Kavita. I'm a behavioral and evolutionary ecologist, faculty member at CES. This is Navendu here, Navendu Page, who's at the Thackeray Foundation, and he did his PhD in community and macroecology at CES. Then Devika Ranade, she's at Nature Conservation Foundation. She did her PhD in behavioral ecology at CES. And then Jitesh Jhawar, who's at Ahmedabad University now, and he did his PhD in theoretical ecology. So after PhDs from CES in ecology, they've all gone on to have very diverse careers within ecology, and so really happy to have them here. What we thought we'd do is, given the time available, we thought we'd pick up a couple of themes in this panel discussion topic, have panel members share their thoughts, views, and at the end, hopefully, we'll have time to invite views, comments from all. So that's the plan. What I wanted to do to start off with is actually ask panel members to tell us a little bit about what they do now, and especially to also tell us, did they think they would be doing this now when they were doing their higher studies? And if not, what brought them to where they are now. So, maybe Navendu, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Kavita, and thanks CES for inviting all of us here. It's really wonderful to be here. It's also a bit scary sitting here, especially in front of all our faculty teachers. Alright, so introductions.
What do you do, Navendu?
Yes. So, in short, I study plants, and I currently work with an organization called Thackeray Wildlife Foundation. And I've been with them for a year, but before that, I worked as a scientist at the Wildlife Institute of India. And then I decided to sort of do things that I really enjoy doing, which is basically spend more time in the field. I started my PhD at CES in 2008, and I'm going to take inspiration from Manjari here actually. I'm going to say that I wanted to do my PhD on frogs, but my supervisor Karthik very firmly said no. And I ended up working on plants for my PhD, and I've stuck to plants ever since. And in retrospect, I must thank Karthik for that. I would say I'm very happy that I've ended currently. But to come back to your question on whether I knew whether I would be doing this, it's really hard to say because I've been interested in nature and wildlife since a really young age, and that's largely because of my mother and all the mentors that I met along. So I wasn't even aware that there was one could do a career in ecology, and surprisingly enough, although there were quite a few mentors who encouraged me along with my interest, there were not many who said that you could actually forge a career in the field of ecology. So I was very unsure what I was going to do, except I just wanted to be out there in the field, just observing things. And things just worked out, I suppose. Two institutions have been largely instrumental. One is the Wildlife Institute of India and, of course, Center for Ecological Sciences. Yeah.
Thanks, Navendu. Devika.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Is this okay? Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Devika. I was in Kavita's lab from 2014 to 2020, and yeah, I'm talking in front of the CES audience after I think 5-6 years. And like Navendu said, it is as intimidating as it was earlier. But yeah, I'll try. So, while I was doing my PhD, actually, I always saw that all these cool things that every one of us are doing in the department do not really reach the larger audience. You know, so basically, I was a part of two very different worlds. One was our ecology circle, the professional circle in which we always spoke about nature and how cool nature is, and the other was my family and friends outside the ecology circle who had no idea of what we were doing, and more importantly, why we were doing what we were doing. So I thought there was a very big gap there. And the research, such cool things do not really reach the larger audience at all. So that's why just after my PhD, I started to simplify ecology research for the larger audience in a language that they will understand on social media. So I thought that okay, no one is going to go out of their way and look out for answers to certain questions related to nature. But if things just pop up on their screens, they are like they might just move. They might just see the video for more than 3 seconds. That's it. And yeah, so that's why I started Ecology Research Explained, to which I explained ecology research in simpler words. And then in 2021, I started working with NCF. I work with Dr. Suhail Kader. And at NCF, we try to connect people with nature. So that's very close to what I was thinking, all through work. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Great, Devika. We'll come back to people, linking people and nature later on. But before that, Jitesh?
Yeah, thanks, all the faculty to put me here. So I'm Jitesh, and I was a PhD student from 2014 and finished around 2020. So I before that I did a BTech. I come from an engineering background, and after that I did my master's. So all of that was in something called pseudo engineering, bioengineering, not the hardcore mechanical or computer science or something else. But in the hindsight, when if someone looks at what I learned, maybe they were disconnected. But now I can see connections. So when I was doing my BTech, I was exposed to subjects like engineering, mathematics, physics, and as well as subjects from biology. Hardcore biochemistry or more bio kind of subjects. It was really difficult for me to understand, is there some connection. At some point, there were very cool subjects that were coincidentally were in the syllabus, I guess. Something called like thermodynamics of biological systems. So that sort of was a thing which really I thought, okay, this could be something, just something, not everything, but maybe something which I could be doing in the future. So that sort of thing ignited my interest to apply mathematics to biology. Ecology was still not in the picture. So I went on and did a master's in again bioengineering, biosciences, and still I could not fulfill my desire to apply mathematical models to biological systems. I was still wondering what is that biological system that really I want to understand and apply mathematics. As simple as that. I worked in NCL Pune for a year and a half, where I was exposed to nonlinear dynamics, and basically I understood that the entire nonlinear dynamics or modeling is based, or actually ecologists have what has been the role of ecologists in pushing this field, and I So this is something that I appreciate now. But at that point, it ignited my interest into population ecology basically. And there were two coincidental things that happened. One is that this exposure to NLD, and the other thing were these very spontaneous emergence of millipede swarms in Pune during monsoons. So that was one really, I think, a sort of moment where I discovered them. And long story short, but I sort of then found who works on collective behavior. In fact, a friend told me that this is behavior, people study them, this is collective behavior, and there is a person in India who is studying them. And then I was very lucky to actually get the opportunity, and then it's all happened. So yeah,
So quite accidental how you
very
ended
accidental,
up.
very accidental.
Okay, so
Kavita, you had asked a question if we always knew what we would be doing later. I forgot to answer that question. I always knew what I was going to do. I was, completely into animal behavior. I wanted to study animal behavior, and that's why I ended up doing a PhD in animal behavior. But then later I realized that okay, these things are not reaching the larger audience. So that is something that I didn't know. That I'll be,
then shifted.
the shift happened.
Oh. Yeah, so going on to something a little related to what you mentioned, Jitesh, I thought we could first discuss ecology as a discipline, as a pursuit. So when we talk to other scientists, professionals in fields of science or technology other than biology, or even within biology in other fields of biology, often there is this perception that ecology is maybe kind of narrow, specialized, something esoteric, not really with many clear links to other sciences or to technology. So this perception, I wanted to ask you, and maybe Jitesh you could go, I wanted to ask you in this, with ecology as a formal discipline, what do you think of this perception? What do you think is the position that ecology has in relation to other sciences and technology, or maybe where it's heading?
Yeah, I think in general, when we are studying a subject, eventually it becomes narrow and narrower and narrower. It could be any discipline. Yeah, I mean, there are other disciplines we can, you can name them, but for as far as ecology is concerned, I really think that it is not narrow at all, and it is really wide and broad.
Can you give some examples of?
Yes, so when we saw the just the talk before, that how now computer science and engineering is being applied. So, but it's not just that the technology, but what I have learned from my colleagues, friends, while I have been doing my PhD. Uh, Ecological research is about planning, hardcore planning, going into field or experiment just for one hypothesis. So it's really about that, and it takes a lot. So you pick up a very, as a student, we pick up the strength, and not just hardcore in terms of research, but also a lot of soft skills, like going and learning about a local culture or language and all that, but also the kind of data, let's say, that we get, it's really a long-term data, 3 years, 4 years, sometimes longer. So it's actually the big data that's the buzzword there here, but ecology has been working on big data, I feel, from maybe years. The data is sometimes quite fuzzy, broken, so you have to deal with that. A lot of the parameters are changing, and you have to really understand all that. So I think as a these buzzwords which are really now coming up, data science, data analysis, I think colleges have been dealing with data for all this time. So it is definitely not narrow. But
So you're
why
saying
this perception? Sorry.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Why this perception exists in the first place is a sort of surprise to me, really. That why this perception is there, that ecologist or ecology is a narrow field. One reason which I think is that because it's too complex, so sometimes we have a tendency to walk away from the complexity. In our, I mean, in my experiments also, you can see that we do simple experiments. It's not like I dive into an ocean to discover fish, right? So, as a so if there are so many things changing, it's really difficult to understand and maybe bring something meaningful out of it. So a lot of time I think even scientists think that can any meaningful thing come out of whatever you are doing. Right? This question I have also faced myself sometimes. So maybe.
So maybe this is the point where, say, from the experiments you're doing with that you're done with fish, maybe Navendu with the other scale, with across large geographies. Do you have thoughts about what is this challenge that we face, or we're trying to break out of this perception of ecology being narrow? What are some challenges that we face?
Yeah, so two thoughts come to my mind, Kavita, and I think I would break it into the perception that I have experienced personally from talking to other scientists and from talking to non-scientist audience as well. So I'll talk about the perceptions from talking to other scientists from other fields of sciences, and I think one of the challenges that we ecologists face in perhaps other scientists understanding this field is to do, I think, with the uncertainty associated with the field of ecology, and this is especially true, I think, for people who deal with natural experiments or who largely deal with observational studies. And despite there being sufficient scientific rigor, it's very, very likely that the eventual outcome is largely speculative and not definitive. There's also a possibility that with the same set of observations and data, two ecologists can come up with two completely different conclusions. And I wonder if that makes ecology a bit difficult for other scientists to relate to or to understand. The other thought is more from my personal experiences talking to other students in IIC from other departments and also to my friends and relatives. And most often when I try to tell them what I do, the impression that I get is that ecologists seem to be just like going to nice areas and having fun. And although that is true, I don't think they understand that we also do a lot more than just having fun. And very often when I'm telling what I do to my friends and relatives, and I tell them, I go and I explore plants and I try to understand how they're distributed. And it's really hard to explain their expression, but they're like really unimpressed. And they're like, how is this even useful? And that's when I'm in split minds. Like, do I really try hard to make them understand why all this is useful, or should I just say that, you know what, I just enjoy doing this, which is why I do it? So I think, yeah, so I don't have a clear answer, but I think we need to figure out some of these challenges and how to tackle these, I guess, to make ecology a lot more related.
So just moving on a bit, and hopefully a bit once we finish the next theme that we are thinking of discussing, hope it would be great to hear your views also on how how you think ecology actually connects to other sciences, to technology in a kind of multidisciplinary fashion and so on. But right now what I wanted to do is go on to that next theme which you mentioned, Navindu, which is ecology kind of in the mainstream public thinking. And here, Devika, I was hoping that we could ask you, since you're involved with a lot of that. As Navindu also said, often ecology is seen as confused with say pollution and how do you deal with pollution in larger public thinking, or ecology is seen as this fun go watching animals or doing things like that, and ecological other concepts or processes related to that don't seem to be out there. So Devika, what I was wondering if I could ask you is, you know, um, what are why do you think it's important that it should even be out there in the mainstream thinking? And what are some concrete either challenges or successes you've seen when you try to connect ecology to the public?
Right. So I think it's very, very important for all of us to get our research out there in a language in which people are going to relate to. To change people's perception about ecology, we need to talk about it much more than what we do right now. So like all of us who work on things, we just need to talk about it in simple words. Please don't use any kind of jargon because that's just going to push people away. But please talk about your research, whatever you are doing. And what I have realized while talking to people is that people are really interested in knowing what is going on in the natural world. If it is told to them in a nice, kind of storytelling and fun way, people are really interested. For example, and people will not notice it otherwise. All these natural things are just there. Everyone sees them, but doesn't really notice what it's like. Just to give a quick example, we had made a video on these Alstonia trees, the devil's trees or carpenter trees, and they were flowering all over. And we just made a 15-second video on it. I had not expected that video to run well at all. But surprisingly, more than 1.3 million people watched it, and we got some 1,000 comments on it saying, "Oh yeah, I've seen this tree. It's so beautiful. I love the flower. I didn't know that." So there's a perception that there's a ghost on the tree, a ghost stays on the tree. So people spoke about that. People, spoke about their experiences with the tree. But this is all noticing nature, right? And only because it came up on their feed, they now know more about it, like what it is called. And the next time, I'm sure if someone would have seen that video, next time, I hope they'll talk about it with their family and friends. I think it's very important. And talking about environmental science, what you mentioned, today for everyone, environmental science as a subject is, talking about pollution and how there is absolutely nothing left in the world on the earth. It's just going away from us. But instead of that, if we try to tell students how cool nature is, or how there are such unbelievable things happening in nature, I think the rest will just follow very organically. And that's what I think. And that is why it is very important to reach the larger audience, to shift their perspective. And people are interested if we engage with them in the, interesting way.
Oh yeah, so that's an interesting point about communication. Yes. And about that there is that interest out there and one has to motivate that interest. But in that connection, so Navendra, if I can just ask you, apart from people being interested, noticing, is there any other larger important reason, why, what would happen if we just didn't talk about ecology? Or why is it important? Yeah. To you, why do you think so?
Well, I mean, if I ask myself, the answer is very, very easy. But what I'm really worried about is that those of us who know the importance of ecology are very, very few. We're a very small number. And my worry is that people who don't, and I'm going to kind of expand the definition of ecology to apply to the the liking or the love for the living world, and feeling the need or the necessity to also conserve it. And I feel that if majority of the people do not share the same emotions or sentiments that we feel towards nature, we are surely likely to lose the biodiversity and the support for it without people even realizing what they're missing, right? I mean, you can't, why would you stand for something that you don't even know or relate to, or things that you can't even, that you haven't even witnessed? And, and therefore, I feel that it's really, really important for ecologists to not just somehow make an effort. I don't know how this is even possible, but to reach out to really younger audience, right from the school stage, not to attract more people towards the field of ecology, but to just make ecology a way of living, so that people know what is out there and what we are losing. Uh,
So this is from a biodiversity conservation point of view.
Absolutely, yeah.
So to build on that, actually, I always wonder what if the Ambanis and Adanis, would have been exposed to how cool nature is in their younger days. Would they have done things differently? Well, I don't know, but would they have done it differently? Yeah. So yes.
So just once, because we are kind of running out of time, but is it all about appreciation, biodiversity, conservation? Do you see, or this could be something to open up to the larger audience also, do you see a role for ecology, not only an appreciation of the wonderful phenomena around us, but also of ecological processes, species interactions, things like that? Do you see a role for that in either, larger other sciences, technologies, or in larger societal challenges that they face? That's kind of my last question to all.
Okay. So one thing is that, like, if ecology is not there, then certainly, like, people like others, us as in, me, would not have come to ecology. But actually, there are a lot of people in other fields who are looking for pursuing their interests. And for example, a lot of physicists have turned into ecologists. There's an example here. And a lot of mathematicians are looking for problems. They are talking to ecologists, or even any biologist, for instance, and there are a lot of those kind of people. But now, as far as technology is concerned, a lot of technologists, or people who are well versed in technology, they are also kind of hungry maybe for problems, and it's an alternate career for them, I think, that ecology can offer. In terms of, for example, there is automated identification, or movement. There's a whole lot of I think technologies out there which are being just created to study, like all the way from GPS tracks to whatnot. Also, I think satellite. There's a lot of people who are studying these and all these facets around there. So I think it's definitely attracting people, more people from different fields. That's one thing. And what's the other?
Just about links from, can ecology be relevant in other fields or for different societal challenges and so on? Any final thoughts, Devika?
No, just coming back to what you said at the beginning, I think appreciation for nature, I think, is a great starting point. And I think once that is there, I think the need or the interest for understanding the patterns and processes in the field of ecology would obviously follow, at least in a good number of those people who are already exposed to the natural living world. So I think those two definitely go hand in hand. But I think I completely agree with Jitesh. I think ecology is already doing wonderful in terms of integrating other branches of science within its field to address its challenges and causes.
Devika, any final thoughts?
Again, just like Navendu and Jitesh said, ecology is growing, which is really good. Ecology is growing and the interdisciplinary work is growing. Yeah, I think one problem is that people want solutions really fast, and with ecological solutions, it's going to take time. Though the solutions can be more, sustainable, it might take some time to. So that's why I think the money is also all going to faster solutions and faster results. Faster results, I think. But yeah, hopefully things are changing, and let's see how we all try to shape the future of ecology.
So now just wanted to invite any thoughts, comments. We can take that mic around.
We need one.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to assume you're talking about the future of ecology as an academic discipline or future of ecology outside?
I think thinking of how ecology as a discipline,
Right.
but also getting into the larger mainstream thinking. So two elements.
So to the panel, I mean, two big challenges for the discipline of ecology standing before you, right? How will ecology studies and interdisciplinary approaches respond to climate change crisis in a very different way? And secondly, with AI, can AI help you model better, even reach out to people differently, or so looking at climate change and AI, threats or opportunities, and how will the discipline of ecology respond? It's only 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think this is one of those topics where we could have comments from here, but then we have a large audience also who are all in this, who could maybe also contribute to this question. But yeah, would any of you like to?
You want to go? I don't feel confident to address that question at all.
Something like climate change is a very big topic. But again, I will go back to my first point and say that if we appreciate things only, then people will start changing their actions. And just by telling them, okay, don't do this, don't do that, it's very difficult that way. So I think it starts, okay, so the ecologists are all doing their work of research and what's going to work and what's not going to work and what's good, what's not. But then, in order to implement those things, I think it's important to, tell the audience the story in a bit of a different way. Like, look, this is really cool.
Yeah, so that's about communicating climate challenges.
Yes,
but I think a larger question is also for, say, mitigation, adaptation. What's the role of ecology in there? I think.
I came here to seek a respite from a somewhat corporate life I also lead. And unfortunately, this has come back to me. And especially this question about climate change and nature loss. I think that's a very, very big issue, as many of you know. In 2023, the Kunming-Montreal Protocol was ratified by 100 odd countries, and it's actually ratifies a global biodiversity framework, and that recognizes the link between climate change and nature loss. And as a result, several tools have been developed to ensure that in the future, action on climate change or action to stem nature loss mirrors action for climate change. And a very important framework developed is the Task Force for the Nature-related Financial Disclosures, which is very similar to the Task Force for Climate-related Financial Disclosures. And the idea is that, with strong alignment to either task force, companies, for example, can also report against climate and report against nature loss, but the links become very, very evident if the reporting is synergistic. That's one approach. Of course, with a lot of mitigation, especially with respect to habitat loss, ensuring habitat availability, etc. Well, earlier it used to all be about biodiversity, maintaining biodiversity corridors, etc., to ensure population viability. Today, the ecosystem service element is strongly relevant, and among that includes carbon sequestration. I'm not going to go into that because that's a very complex and dirty world presently today, but in principle, carbon sequestration, climate regulation, soil conservation, water security management, etc., are all very strongly linked within nature conservation strategies and with keeping in mind future climate change scenarios. Now, the question about AI, I think the potential is enormous, absolutely enormous, and several companies like, to give you an Amazon, one of the things it really wants to understand its material nature risks or understand its material biodiversity risks, and my company is actually helping them. So we screen something like 300 sites all over the world, which is I think a very, very high level and risky job because some of the data which comes out is suspect, because you do stuff like, for example, looking at facilities located in biodiversity hotspots and say those are high-risk facilities. In some cases, that may not be a proper representation of whether the risks are commensurate with the location of the facility, and you need to take a deeper dive. Okay, that's exactly where AI is extremely important, because in terms of remote sensing, in terms of filtering biodiversity sensitive data, in terms of looking at water security, etc., you can go beyond your existing global filters. And there are several filters which also use AI, and take a deeper dive into some of these sites to really understand material risks a lot more precisely. So it's a very I think very complex and very I would say a field with huge potential, but once again, I am a novice on some of these things, so I don't want
Yes, please.
This is Murali. I work at various organizations, including the United Nations and also International Development Research Center, which is part of the government of Canada. I recently was managing a huge program in the entire Himalayan Valley, entire Himalayan ecosystem, plus several countries across Africa, totally around 17, 18 countries. In fact, the point that we discussed today, climate change and primarily adaptation, there are many, many reservoirs from us. And one of them is transformed adaptations and transformative adaptation. I think that is one critical area where we have to understand. Most importantly, the agricultural systems that we need to come up with, which are adaptive to the emerging scenarios of climate change. And also in the forestry sector, which is quite a bit difficult to imagine what will happen in case current scenarios goes on. But one of our research which concluded in 1920 is that there are possible the transformative adaptations can be possible, particularly where I was working on the river ecosystems, particularly on how to use water and how to model how much water will be feed it right into Ganges or around the Indus. And all these three, in fact, there is also several methods we involved in the process to ensure that our mathematical modeling, both statistical downscaling, and those things have been made, but it has to be defined again. And it's a long way to go. all that I can see is there is an ample opportunity for ecologists, whether they are animal behavior or forest ecologists or even agriculturists. Much of the concentration is required. And even AI, I have not worked at that point, but I'm sure there are now lots of opportunities to inculcate AI in college possible, particularly at geographical specifically, cutting across one by one with your other that level of accuracy. I think that is going to be very, very important, and how we transform our adaptive nature, both in terms of technology and both in terms of behavior. I mean, here human behavior. That is a lot of you were interested,
Thank you.
discuss further on.
I wanted to make a comment about the fact that we were discussing that ecology as a discipline is it a narrow discipline. I think it would be helpful for us to think of a reference point in the sense that for an undergraduate teaching is ecology a narrow discipline? Perhaps it is. We might want to teach our undergrad students about culture, society. Ecology is definitely an important subject. Somebody in my classroom had never even touched a leaf, so they didn't know what the texture of a leaf feels like. So it's a very, very important subject. But I think we need to ask, is it a subject we want to teach as a major at undergraduate level or not?
We are out of time. Great. Thank you. Thanks to all of you, and thank you everyone.
Carry the chairs with you.
Just a small reflection.
You can. We'll continue setting up what we have in the next 5 minutes. This one.
Yeah. So can I?
Please go ahead.
So I just answered this question of people and society, which was actually discussed. I answered this question because of privilege. I had 15 plus years roaming throughout the Western Ghats and up to Western Himalayas. So the thing was actually I give it one or two examples actually. One example was that actually one tree which I read for that Vodka Bodolini from Karnataka, it was completely extinct. So I took we mapped that in the Western Ghats area, that was actually the Yana and further. And I told the forest departments that we will go and check it actually what actually the status is there about the tree. And when I took the forest department and the people there, actually in the particular that tree, extinct tree which was there, I found that before we reached, it was seen that the people who are there had completely removed those trees along with the Mirishika stumps which were there, to make safe that actually those land will be there for their Areca garden, right? They will not be overtaken by the forest departments. Means what? Another example is one Bhutadimba sacred grove which was there. And in front of my eyes, 500 to 600 acres of that Bhutadimba forest was actually burned down by the people who are meant to protect. What I am saying is that people outside our CS or many other things literally don't have any idea of what is the importance of any of the tree or an animal or any of those. Please, if you can make one or two things very important. One is that any of the project what we do, at the end of the project, if you can keep some budget outside, only to see that actually those species which we are researching it in the place, the people who are associated with it, if they know the value of that, if they associate with those people who are working with that, that would be really great. Every project what we do has to have.
Thank you. I think that's what the panel was trying to say very much as well. We're completely in agreement with you. Thanks for your comments, but we have to wrap at 1 and I have another small. Thank you so much for your comments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play our former students sent us some messages. Lunch protest. Sorry, just wait a minute. I have the mic. 2 points I wanted to make actually in response to the panel. One, Navendu gave the impression that he was a frog guy when he came to my lab. He was a botanist and India's best young botanist who came into my lab and said, I want to work with frogs. And I said, no. Frog people fall out of trees. Tree people don't fall out of anything. So anyway, the second is that actually like taking on from what they've said multiple times. Some of you, I will show some slides in the afternoon, a sneak preview of a coffee table of a popular book that the faculty of CS has been working on. Some of you may not be there, and you'll get your copies later. But I just wanted to say that we actually, in a sense, have perhaps internalized that message greatly and felt that CES over the decades has not really done enough to popularize or to tell the stories of our own research, tell the stories of ecology, evolution, and behavior. And I'm really like sort of delighted to have been called out publicly and to be able to say we actually are in the process of doing something